Hello, my lovers. Welcome to Future Husband Diaries. My name is Maya Spanda. This is a faith-based podcast where we talk about anything and everything that is affecting single, married, almost single, whichever way, situationship kind of people, and they're all Christian women. So this is the podcast for you. If you are a single Christian woman, if you are a married Christian woman in your 20s, in your 30s, and you're navigating the whole situation, and you get to join me in my whole journey in my singlehood as I navigate on how all the lessons that I've learned so far as I'm navigating on praying for my future husband as we go through this motion together. So welcome. And I hope that you enjoy all the Christian content that we've been putting out for you. And with this Christian content, I hope that you draw closer to Christ and you will get sanctified along the way. Because this whole thing is a process. It's not one thing where you'll be done and you'll be fixed, you'll be okay just because you have accepted Christ in your life. So it's a whole process where you get to be more and more like Christ every single day. So we talk about real topics, real things that are affecting women out there. There are so many things that a lot of people cannot stand on the pulpit and talk about because of how the whole Christian denomination is like. There are some things we cannot really talk about in church. So this is the place where we talk about the things that are affecting you in your Christian journey that we cannot talk about in church. So welcome. And I hope that you enjoy. So like, subscribe, share it with a girl that you think this is what you really need, girl. This is something that will uplift you and you become even more pure and purer, more closer to Christ in your journey. All right. So our topic today is Sexpectations. How far is too far? So if you are just coming in and you are not a Christian, please scroll, we'll wait. Just swipe up, swipe left, swipe up and move on. The thing is, we want to get to a point where we talk about those things. We usually, when we are growing up, when you're growing up as a Christian woman, if maybe you are like me, if maybe you are like most of the Christian people who grew up in the Christian denomination, right? Who grew up in the Christian church, most of the times we do not really have the talk. Let's be serious. We don't really have the talk. If we are to have the talk is always do not have sex. That's the whole statement. The Bible says we should not have sex, and it just stops there. But then it begs the question, you'll be like, okay, it says do not have sex, and then other things, just don't do it. And no one actually says anything after that. But then as you grow, as you are, there are some things that you feel like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do it, I want to try that. Then you start to ask yourself, how far is too far? How far is too far? Like, am I at that point where this is before sin, this is after sin? I just want to get to that point where you're like, it's not technically sin, but I'm still okay. The reason why most of us want to, we want to navigate that kind of line, we want to have those boundaries. So we always want to know, where is the boundary? Who puts the boundary? In such a way that we want to draw the line, we want to be next to the line. But then what I've found along the way is, if you are asking yourself, where can I be? Where can I be so that I can still be holy? I can still be accepted into the church. I can still be accepted in the Christian denomination. Christ still accepts me and I still get to be on the fun side. If you are asking yourself that question, that is the wrong kind of question that you should be asking yourself. So today we get to navigate what is the type of question, what kind of posture should you have, so that at the end of the day, we do not toe the line and ask ourselves to be, are we almost holy? Are we almost sinful? Are we in the line? Are we okay? Are we lukewarm? We do not want to be lukewarm Christians, but we want to be pure Christians and growing closer and closer to Christ. So that is why I came up with this topic. That's why I'm asking this topic. I know there are some things where you can go on the internet and you can get all these other answers, the different answers. These people are saying this, others are saying that, others are saying that. But then I do not want to get into that. But then what I want to talk about first is, the reason is, you are now in a relationship, right? You are in a relationship with someone. You need to be able to define, the person you're in a relationship with, you need to be able to define what is affection and what is arousal. The reason why I am getting first into that before we get into how far is too far and how we can look at that, the reason is, there are some things that are affectionate and there are some things that are arousing in some way. For example, I am in a relationship with someone, and to me, my love language is physical touch. If my love language is physical touch, so therefore, if we are in a relationship and we are not holding hands, we are going with me to the mall and you are not holding me or you're not giving me a hug, therefore, I feel like you do not love me. I feel like there is something missing in that relationship, because to me, that is how I define affection. Right? But then maybe if you are doing that, you do not feel the affection in the process. To you, therefore, it sort of like feels arousing in some way. Have you ever held someone's hand? You're holding someone's hand and they start to do like funny things. I'm like, okay, then you like take a step back, like, dude, I know we are not really dating, but no, that handshake was, no. And then sometimes you'll be like, that hug, no. But then there are some times you just hold their hand and you become affectionate towards that person, or you just hug a person and you become affectionate towards that person. So now, in a relationship, when you are in a relationship with that person, I feel like open communication is really key. Open communication is something that you really should look into before before a relationship progresses even further, before a relationship gets to a point where, you become like serious, maybe like at the beginning of the relationship, you define and you have that open communication, you define what affection is to you, and you define what arousal is like for you. The reason is, I've made those mistakes before. I do not want you to make those mistakes and you find yourself like you're having miscommunication with the person next to you. Therefore, you need to be able to define what affection is to you. So if to you and him, you decide that affection is about holding hands, affection is about hugging, affection is about kissing, and that is where we will stop. Therefore, you can define that for your relationship. The reason is, maybe you be like, okay, I'm comfortable holding hands, I'm comfortable holding something here, but if it so happens that you put your hand on my lap, therefore that is now a no-no. The reason is, now it's arousing something in me, and therefore I feel like we are now towing the line. We are now not at too far, but we are towing the line. We are now getting to be a little bit far. Right, where we'll be like, no, for me, too far. Affection is all about this. But then for me, if you like hold me maybe at the back here, therefore, that is no longer affection for me. It sort of like arouses something. And I do not trust myself to not continue afterwards. I do not trust myself on whatever will come after that. Therefore, because now my mind and the thoughts that I'll be having will not be okay. Therefore, I'll be looking at you lustfully, and I do not trust myself to say that it will not go on further, and we might find ourselves in a very compromising situation. So you need to be able to look into the relationship with the person that you're in and define affection, what affection is like for you, what arousal is for you. Therefore, you put the boundaries for yourself in the relationship. And you'll be like, this is okay for me, this is okay for me, and this is not okay for me, and this is not okay for me. The reason is, we always want to toe the line, right? We're like, oh, okay, we're not really going to have sex, right? But maybe we're just going to do like oral sex, or we're just going to sleep in the same bed, or we're just maybe going to do this because we're like, okay, the Bible just says sex. It doesn't really define whether is it oral or is it what. As long as, and maybe to me, say what I define to be sex is therefore if there is like penetration or whichever way, I do not know, right? But then therefore that's what defines me. And then you sort of like, you want to draw the line into what. But then I think the decisions or the boundaries that you're going to make as the two of you, you need to be able to be guided by the Holy Spirit. Because at the end of the day, okay, you are saying this is the boundary for you, but then there are other things that you're saying they are not really a boundary for you. I'm not really here to judge, to say this is the line, this is not the line, this is too far, this is not too far. I'm just here to have like an open mind discussion with you, so that at the end of the day you ask yourself, with the person that you're in, with the relationship that you're in, you ask yourself, and then you look like, okay, am I okay with this or am I not okay with this? Because at the end of the day, there are some things that even though you did not really like maybe get to the sex part, there are some things that you, if you do, your heart beats fast, you have that guilty sensation in you'll be like, no, in your mind, in your heart, this was wrong. There are some instances where you start to feel guilty, even though you feel like maybe I did not really cross the boundary. But once you do something, therefore, you start to feel guilty. Therefore, that is your conscience telling you that whatever you were doing, therefore, was towing the boundary. Because most of the time, we tend to ignore that guilty feeling that we have. But that guilty feeling, you might never know, might be the Holy Spirit trying to convict you that whatever it is that you are doing, therefore, that was really towing the line for you. Therefore, I need to reevaluate that and do it prayerfully so that you can go back and reevaluate the things that you were doing before. And the thing is, I felt in order for you to avoid the guilt that you get afterwards, the kind of guilt that you have after doing something, and therefore you feel like this is therefore not uplifting my spiritual life, it's therefore not really making me feel comfortable, right? You need to look at it like what you are doing. Would you feel comfortable doing it outside, right? In an open place. If you feel comfortable doing that outside where there are a lot of people, therefore, even though you are in an enclosed space, you can still feel comfortable doing it. But then if you have to move from the open area and move to a place where it really is now closed so that other people are not looking at you. Therefore, that is sort of like a boundary that you have to look into. Therefore, that is a little bit too far for you. Therefore, why? Because you're not feeling comfortable for others to see you. You want to do it now in a secret place. You want to do it now in a place where you do not feel comfortable. Therefore, that is another conviction that you can have to say, therefore, this is really also going too far for me, and therefore is not making me feel comfortable because I cannot do it outside. If you feel comfortable doing all of these things outside in front of people, therefore you are not really touring the line. You are okay in that aspect. That is how I'll feel. That is one of those things that you can really like look into and say, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with this. These are things that you need to define yourself. And therefore, do not just define yourself in your mind and think about it. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with that. These are the things you need to define prayerfully. These are the things you need to define studying the Bible. These are things that you need to define with the Holy Spirit guiding you and comforting you throughout this whole journey. There are some other instances where maybe you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know I'm guilty of all these wrong things that I've been doing. And therefore, I cannot find myself. It's really hard for me to stop because this is where I have defined my line. But therefore, afterwards, it makes me feel so guilty makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I'm not worthy of God's love after that. These are the things that you should look into. And moving back into redefining your boundary is going to be really hard. I'm telling you, it's not something that it can just come right then and it will be okay. When after watching this video, I'm like, I've stopped doing this. There are other people who can do that. But then there are other people who also struggle with that. So what is it that you need to do? You need to do this prayerfully. You need to pray to God. Be like, God, I would really, really like these are the things that I've been doing. You state them, in your secret prayer, God, you state them, God, I've been doing this and this. And therefore, after this, I always feel guilty. I always feel inadequate. I always feel all of these feelings afterwards. And therefore, I would like you to come into my life and help me to move back and redefine the boundaries that I want to go to, and redefine the expectations that I expect from the person who I'm in a relationship with, and redefine the expectations that I have, and redefine the expectations that the other person should have. Therefore, that's something that you can do prayerfully. And if it so happens that you need to pray to God to be like, God, please remove this person, because I feel like they are the ones who are pulling me down. I've said this over and over again, but whenever I see them or whenever I always go back to that scenario. I always find myself back into that. You can also have that kind of prayer. I also had that prayer. And you know what, God really answers that prayer, because he really answered that prayer. Even though for me, it was just to remove that person totally out of my life. But God can also do that, right? He can redefine the boundaries for you, because we should be in a space where we feel comfortable to come to worship. We feel, all of these things. We live a life which is pure. We live a life that has redefined the boundaries of what all sex is all about. And it's not really just about sex. Whenever you look at it, it's not really just about that, but it's all about the whole process, in such a way that my dating period, your dating period, you get into a marriage and you still feel pure, you still feel, adequate enough, to stand for Christ. And people, even though they are to judge your life, they can really say that you really are standing up for Christ. And there are other question marks that you might have, like, yes, she is still a virgin, but we do not want to have those kind of situations. Like, yes, they are still a virgin, but have you ever seen the kind of people that she has had this with? I have pictures of her doing this and that. There are other things that, even though they are not really doing the act, but therefore they are crossing a certain line that, as Christian women, as Christians, we really shouldn't be looking into. These are the things that you should be asking. And then with all of those things, you really should look into how you spend your time. Do not find yourself in compromising situations. If it so happens that you're not comfortable with us, move it into a place which is an open space. Move it to a place which is so that you do not find yourself in very compromising situations, because the Bible really says that we should not raise love before its time. So we should make sure that we do not do that. So therefore, identify what is affection for you, and therefore talk to the other person you're in a relationship with, so that you really define it, that person, so that that person does not have to pressure you into crossing a boundary that you're not really comfortable with. But that person is helping you to maintain that boundary that you are comfortable with. Because all of this, it's not really just about God saying don't. No, but it's just about living a life which is pure. It's about living a life that you're comfortable with. It's about living a life that you can truly say, I'm truly sanctified. Because, as I said, this is a whole process. This is a whole different conversation, which is a big, huge conversation that we should be having and talking about, so that we do not find ourselves in compromising situations. We do not find ourselves in situations where we are not really comfortable as a people, as a Christian denomination, and with all of this, it will help us to navigate this whole dating scene. It will help us to navigate what what really is comfortable for us and what really is not comfortable for the other person. Therefore, it's one of those things that you can check for compatibility with the next person. Like, okay, we might be compatible in other way, but when it comes to this way, I feel like we are not really compatible, because what you define to be boundaries for you and what I define to be boundaries for me, therefore they clash. And if we have that kind of conversation afterwards, you are not willing to look at my side, or I'm not willing to look at your side. Therefore, I feel like we should not really continue in this, but we should stay where we are and then we move on to the other people. Those are the things that we should be having, so that you do not find yourself in a compromising situation. You do not find yourself in a situation that be like, oh, okay, but what? And then there are some other things where you might find yourself like, okay, I have fallen, I've what, but then what are the things that I should do? You know what? When you're looking to Christ, you just come as you are. Christ doesn't care about the mistakes that you have done in the past. Christ doesn't care about the mistake you just did right now. But what is it that Christ cares about? Christ cares about you turning to Him and looking to Him and looking for guidance in your life. He is going to help you in every situation that you are going to need, and is going to be there for you. And with all of those things, I like the Bible is because it says flee from sexual immorality, right? It says flee, doesn't say just say run. It doesn't say, it says flee. You know, when someone is fleeing, it means really, really run. But then in order for you to be able to run from such, you do not have to put yourself in compromising situations. You need to toe the line and be like, I want to get closer to the line so that I'm still pure, but then I'm still okay. So therefore, do not ask yourself the question, how far is too far? The question that you should be asking yourself is, how can I maintain myself to be in a pure state? How can I maintain myself to be ready for Christ? How can I help the person next to me in this relationship to be closer to Christ, so that we all, when we get to the marriage part, or when we get to what, we are still good, we are still compatible, we're still what, because we are so glad that we waited in all of this and we did not arouse all of these things before it was time, but we stood in a way that it represented Christ in the kind of relationship that we're in. So I feel those are the things that you should be asking yourself before that. There are so many other things that you can talk about, but I think I'll be posting the questions on Instagram and all, and then we have that conversation so that we open up those kind of what. And even the topic that we have next week is still continuing in this section, is still continuing in the kind of expectations that we should be having, or the kind of expectation, the kind of things that we should be doing too, so that we remain pure, so that we do not fall, but we become even closer to Christ. So what is it that I'm saying? Like, subscribe, and even follow this YouTube channel, Instagram, whichever way, on all the social platforms that you give it. But then with Instagram, that's where we are starting out now. So that's why I'll be posting the polls, the what, all the kind of things as we are continuing the conversation from where we are now. So that's all that I had for you today. I hope that you take that girl that you think will really, really benefit from this conversation. Take that girl that you think will really like this conversation, and we will start to talk about those things, and we just do not say don't, right? We just do not say just don't, don't have sex, but then we do not define the other things, and therefore we find ourselves falling into situations that we cannot get out of. So therefore, we need to be able to pull ourselves together, become closer to Christ, and live a life that shows Christ in every single way. So, okay, bye, my lovers. See you next week on the next topic. We're still continuing in this series. I do not know when the series is going to end, but I'm still going to continue in this process, and then we talk about this, and we build it. We build ourselves up and become closer to Christ. So that's all that I had for you today. I hope that you enjoyed. And if you have anything, you can take us with the whole story, or if you feel comfortable sharing the story that you had, or if you feel we need to continue with the conversation more, you can even put it in the comment section, and you can and we can continue. So goodbye. See you next time.